Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thank you for joining me, Drew Altdorfer, product manager here in fantastic, sunny, and increasingly warm Copenhagen, Denmark. Today we're here to talk about black and white photography. What we're really going to talk about is achromatic photography. A little bit different than black and white, but about the same. Now, when we talk about black and white photography, what I'm trying to talk about is kind of the different approach that we have to photography when we're out in the field shooting with an achromatic sensor, when we're out there shooting just black and white. Now, we can take any camera that's available to us and we can go out and we can shoot, and we can either put a style on that IQ4 digital back, the color version, or we can put a different filter on our camera, whatever camera you have, so that it appears to shoot in black and white. Now, that is a fantastic approach to getting out there and shooting with black and white, but that is, of course, a color sensor that is dedicated first and foremost to color photography, which we are then converting back into black and white. That results in a monochromatic image. There's nothing wrong with a monochromatic image. But the mentality and the approach to photography when we're out there and we're restricted to only shoot black and white, in my opinion, really helps put me in a different mindset. It really brings out a different quality to my photography, and it helps me see things differently that I normally wouldn't see. Now, that approach to photography is something that I really started with. That was my foray into photography, was with black and white film. And so when we at Phase 1 are thinking about our approach to black and white photography, we have certain tools at our disposal. One of those tools is an achromatic sensor. So we have almost the exact same sensor from our IQ4 150 that is then made into an achromatic sensor. And when I say this is made into an achromatic, it's actually the opposite. Every sensor can start as an achromatic sensor, but then that sensor has a color filter array put over top of the actual pixels. So that color filter array is a small red, green, and blue filter that's put over each and every pixel so that it can only capture red, green, or blue colors from out in the world, convert those into an actual color file. Now, an achromatic sensor doesn't have a color filter array. It doesn't have any of that information. So whatever light is going into the actual pixel, it's captured and converted into a value, and that is your 0 to 255 absolute values in digital terms. So it's either completely black, completely white, or some variation of gray, depending on how much light got into that pixel. So there isn't that extra step of actually converting the red, green, and blue data into a color file. It is just whatever the pixels, individual pixels, 151 million of them in this case, what each and every pixel reports as a value of either black, white, or somewhere in the middle, some shade of gray. So we do not have a CFA on the achromatic sensor. So there is no color filter array, there is no Bayer pattern, which means we don't have to do any interpolation, or very, very little when it comes to converting the raw file into a linear file. We don't have to kind of invent colors and guess which ones might be purple when we've captured red, green, and blue, which ones might be pink, which ones might be yellow. These are all colors that have to be kind of created and interpreted through interpolation, through reading that red, green, and blue data, converting the values of red, green, and blue into the appropriate amount to mix together to give us all the other shades and colors that a 16-bit sensor, the 64 million different colors that it can capture. So we do not have that capability on an achromatic, which could be seen as a restriction, but in fact it's a strength, because when we don't do that interpolation, we have a much more pure quality to the captured file. The other thing that an achromatic sensor gives us is the flexibility to capture outside the visible spectrum. When we do not have a filter over the actual pixels, so there is no CFA, red, green, and blue filtering, we do not have to put an infrared filter over the sensor as well. So if you look at the IQ4 150 color version, we have a bit of a green sensor, a green filter that's over the sensor. That is our IR cut filter, so it is cutting out in any infrared light. Whereas if you look at the IQ4 150 achromatic, we don't have any of that. So we have a bit of a grayish brown tone to the actual sensor, and that's pretty much looking directly at the pixels. Whereas here you have to go through this green substrate, and then you get onto this multicolored substrate. So these are all different filters that the light has to pass through on a color filter, on a color sensor, that don't exist on an achromatic. So we can actually capture infrared light, we can capture a little bit of UV light because we don't have that filtering on an achromatic. So that's where filtering in front of our lens comes into play. So we have the control as a photographer to actually put, in this case, a UV cut filter in front of our lens so that we can cut out any ultraviolet light, but still capture all the light that exists in the visible spectrum, as well as any infrared that might exist. So when we're talking about a Bayer filter, what are we really talking about? When we're talking about a CFA, we're talking about that red, green, and blue filtering that exists over each and every pixel. One is red, one is blue, two are green. That gives us the Bayer pattern. The actual pattern that these things are set up in is what is then interpreted by, in our case, Capture One software, to convert red, green, and blue colors into the 64 million different tones that exist on a 16-bit sensor. Now that is a fantastic feat, and that's the special way in which we do that is how we can really squeeze out a lot of image quality from not just our cameras, but all the other cameras that are out there. The magicians in Capture One and their fantastic algorithms can really read all that data from the Bayer pattern, from that CFA, and really fine-tune the measurements so that we can get very, very rich colors out of that sensor. Now, without the CFA, without the Bayer filter, we just get a very pure amount of light and a pure amount of data that goes into the actual sensor. So a very rudimentary way to think about it is when we have a 100 megapixel sensor, to keep it easy, we have red, green, and blue filters that go over all the pixels. So that is our CFA, our color filter array. The pattern that they're on there would be the Bayer pattern. So that's really giving us 50% green, 25% blue, and 25% red pixels. Now that's still 100 megapixels, but it has to be interpreted in different ways to give us all of those different shades, which does degrade the quality a little bit from a true capture of 100 megapixels. You know, we end up somewhere, depending on how the algorithm works, a little less than a true one-to-one relationship of one pixel is one tone. So when we look at an achromatic, we don't have any of that interpolation. So really 100 megapixels, or in this particular case, 151 megapixels, that is a very true measure of the data that's coming in. So one pixel will relate to one tone that is in the image. And that gives us a bit more richness of detail, a bit more depth of detail, and a bit more sharpness, because we have an image that doesn't have any of that interpolation, doesn't have any of that massaging of the data. Which means that in one software versus another software, we can get very similar results because it's really the sensor that's doing the heavy lifting here. The sensor's capturing the data, reporting it directly. We don't have a Bayer filter. We don't have interpolation. We just have rich, deep detail that we can work with and really expand and dive into in the post-processing. So in that sense, it's very similar to negative film, where you had black and white negative film, which was just one layer of gelatin with silver halide in it. And that silver halide was sensitive to the light, and that's what moved around to actually, give you the scene that you captured. And it gave you, a very crisp, sharp image because there's only one substrate of light to pass through when you're making your print. Sorry to go back to the days of film, but that's where I started, and that's where I think a lot of you might have started, or at least you've dabbled in it. The alternative to that is if anybody has ever shot film with C41 color film that is meant to be monochromatic, meant to only be one color. That C41 film that is monochromatic, is black and white, has 3 different layers or 4 different layers of substrate, of gelatin, with 4 different colors in it. But then all of that color is stripped away and you just end up with a monochromatic image, which doesn't have the punch, doesn't have the contrast, doesn't have the crispness that exists in black and white film. That's kind of the film equivalent to interpolation, I suppose. So without the Bayer pattern, the CFA, without the interpolation, we get a much crisper, much sharper, much more depth of detail in our image, something that you can really step into, something that you can really see. The punch that exists in that image is something that you can't get from a color sensor of equivalent resolution. Now, the last thing that achromatic gives us is the ability to capture outside the visible spectrum. So the visible spectrum is what's visible to you and I. It's what we can see. But an achromatic sensor can then capture a little bit of ultraviolet, a little bit of infrared, and gives us a bit more flexibility to kind of expand outside of what we can see. Now we have to train ourselves how to see it, how to know what it'll look like, but with an achromatic sensor you can see it right on the digital back once you take the image, which is a far cry from the days of playing with infrared in film. But that is one of the many tools that exists in our tool bag when we're shooting with a dedicated black and white achromatic sensor. So no Bayer filter. That really goes back to the roots of photography. Here we have the first photograph ever taken, possibly. And that photograph is just a light-sensitive material with light coming through a camera obscura and light reacting with the material, and then light not reacting where it doesn't fall on the light-sensitive material. That is just black and white. It is just shades of gray. And it is the spacing of that black and white material that gives us the tonality. That's as simple as black and white photography gets. And that mentality, that approach, as simple as we can make digital black and white photography, exists in a dedicated achromatic sensor, in a dedicated black and white sensor. Now, just to illustrate the interpolation, I have a small image here of an actual color sensor versus a achromatic sensor. These are not the phase 1 sensors, but it gives you an idea of how and why we get that richness of detail. Because we don't have any data that's filtering or interrupting the light hitting those pixels. We just have individual pixels that have a color tone, or a tone without color, that then gets reported back to the actual raw file, which then becomes our image. We don't have any of the red, green, and blue interpolation. We don't have any of that interrupting the image quality and kind of distracting from the sharpness, the quality of detail. So we can get much crisper, much more detail in that file. And last but not least, the visible spectrum versus the infrared spectrum. This just gives us a bit more flexibility. So this is something that is completely optional to use. You can filter out the infrared, you can filter out the UV, you can filter out the visible spectrum, but it's something that gives you a bit of a bit more control over your sensor, over your camera system, and that allows you to be a bit more creative. So again, if we go back to just that idea of film, the T-Max film, which is my go-to for black and white photography. I actually don't know how many other films are still available out there in black and white negative, but that T-Max 400, that's something that if you've ever shot black and white film, odds are you've used that film. That is kind of the go-to stock standard for black and white photography when we're shooting film. But that is, of course, intelligently marketed as the world's sharpest by Kodak, because there isn't any of that additional substrate of colors that's going to be interrupting the depth of detail, the richness that's in there. It's a very simple film. It's just the gelatin, the silver halide, and it gives us our crisp, high contrast, rich detail image. Now, shooting with C41 color film, where you have all of this substrate, you can still get a black and white image. It is monochromatic, not achromatic, which means it has all these different colors that it's made from, but you're only seeing one. In that case, it's black and white. So you're only seeing the single kind of muddled black and white from that film. Now, these are all strange equivalents to make in a digital world, but what I'm trying to convey to anybody that's been out there that has shot with black and white film, that has then shot with C41 color film and converted it to black and white, there is a very incredible loss of detail, of contrast, of context, of subject. It's not great. And when we shoot with a color system, we get fantastic color. We get full 16-bit color. And if we convert that color image that we captured on a color digital camera, we convert that to black and white, we are going to get fantastic results. We're going to get wonderful images. But when we are dedicated to a black and white sensor, when we have the mentality out in the field of we're just shooting black and white, and we use a tool that strips away all of the flexibility that color gives us, but it really refines the process and the photographic process, we go out into the field with a different mentality. We look at our subjects differently, we think about the photograph differently, and then we're able to come back into our post-processing and develop that raw file with a different approach, with a bit more of a mindset of the detail, the richness, the full composition of the file without worrying about the color balance, without worrying about the strange light that's leaking in and giving you a different really color tone than you're used to, or washing out some of the color tones, or having outlandish, outrageous, oversaturated colors. None of that exists when we just go out and we approach photography with an achromatic sensor, with a dedicated achromatic black and white camera. Now, Raul and I were lucky enough to get out in the field together. Raul with his trusty video camera and me with the XT and the XF. We were able to go out on a rather nice sunny day, but of course that sunny day didn't have the warmth that we were looking for. But we were out in the morning. We had high skies with almost no clouds above us, so we were really looking at some high contrast scenes. But we have the right tools. We were using the IQ4 150 achromatic, so we were able to use dual exposure plus. We're capturing these images with 18 stops of dynamic range in some cases, and we're really able to focus on the detail of the image, the composition of the image, and then know when we develop it, we're just looking for that richness, that tonality. So Raul and I went out and recorded the capturing of these files, which you will have available to you at the end of the webinar. So you can download the RAWs, have a play with them, see what we see. So Raul will cut to that video now. It's a short clip, about 10 or 12 minutes of us out in the field capturing these images and walking through the mentality of, framing up the composition, thinking in terms of black and white, filtering out the infrared, and using the tools available to us, the XT, the XF, to capture these scenes. And really just have that black and white mentality while we're out there, looking at things differently. So if you haven't been able to get out of your home and do some photography, you can join us. It's like you're there with us. It'll be fun. And then we'll come right back here in the studio. We'll go through some of the samples that we shot, and then we can answer any of your questions that may come up. So enjoy the clip, and we'll be right back. Well, good late morning to everybody. Raul, my trusty cameraman, and I are out on one of the, I guess, most acceptable spring Danish days that we've had so far. We had the opportunity to get out of the office, so we did. Fresh air, so we don't need masks, which is great, and there's nobody around me right now, so everything's fine. But we took the opportunity that the beautiful stark blue sky day gave us to come out and do a little photography with the XT camera system and the IQ4 150 achromatic. Now, being an achromatic digital back, an achromatic sensor, we do not have a color filter array, we do not have a Bayer pattern, so all of this beautiful bright color that's out here, blue sky, green grass, greenish grass, doesn't really matter. But what's going to make this this type of a scene and this type of a lighting perfect for the achromatic is because it is so stark, because it is so bright. It would have been nice if we had some clouds, but you can't have everything. So, setting up the camera system, we start at ISO 200. The achromatic sensor has no color filter array, so we just have ISO 200 as our base ISO. We're shooting this where we have a pretty significant dynamic range. We have one side of this building in shadow, the other side in very bright, bright light, and we have all of this fine detail in the architecture of the scene. So that achromatic sensor with all of its detail, with no demosaicing, no interpolation, is really going to give us all that fine texture of this building. So in live view, we have the scene framed up for our building in the middle. Again, we have all that bright light on the left side, and then our deep shadows on the left. And you can see our focus masks so that we have pretty much perfect focus throughout the entire frame. We have some movements on the camera
So if we go back here, we've got our X shift at 3 degrees and Y at 8.5, and that's what's giving us both the horizontal framing as well as the proper perspective adjustment so that we get the tops of the building. We have a delay for our drive mode so that we can make sure the camera's nice and still before it takes the shot. And then we are going to use the largest frame, the IIQ large 16-bit extended. So then we're just going to go in here and choose our dual exposure plus option, and that is going to give us a +3, so it's going to take 2 shots, one for the highlight at 3/20th of a second and one for the shadow at a 40th of a second, and stitch those together. Push the countdown and away we go. And that's it. No click of the shutter, no anything, because we are using the electronic shutter when we're using the dual exposure plus. And if we go through to find our frame, there it is. So you're not going to see much difference in the digital back preview, but all of that dynamic range will show up in Capture One. And if we go back through and look at our histogram, we have a perfect exposed to the right shot where we don't have any clipping, and we can verify that with our clipping mask. We don't see any overlay, and there we have it. A nice, beautiful, crisp, clean image that we can get back into in Capture One. So it being a very nice day with very bright blue skies, what makes this type of light great for achromatic black and white photography is we have all of these tools to really control the light. Not only do we have all the dynamic range that the sensor gives us and all the detail that the sensor is going to give us, but we're not super concerned with, you know, how drab the grass is going to look because it's early spring, or how blown out the sky is going to be. As long as we filter correctly for UV light and infrared light, then we're going to be able to darken down that sky. We're going to be able to bring out all the contrast in the building, in the foreground. So we're going to pop around a little bit more and try and find some more detail in some of the wooded areas. And that's kind of what we all learned, I guess, when we were doing black and white photography, is we had to go out no matter what when we were shooting. We didn't get to wait for the perfect lighting conditions, but that control that black and white gives you, because you're removing that color element, it makes the entire process a bit more fun, I think, and certainly puts a lot more elements in your control. So, Raul, let's go. Raul and I have moved locations to a windier, colder, and shadier part of this beautiful park, so that we can shoot the dappled sunlight coming through the trees with these fallen logs. So when we have light like this in basically the middle of the day, where it's not very dramatic, we have to make our own drama. And shooting in black and white really gives you a lot more freedom to find that drama and really interpret what it is you're seeing in the post-process. You don't have the colors to interpret that, but you certainly have a lot of raw data, and you don't have the colors that you need to stay true to. So we've swapped over to the XF camera system so we can use the focus stacking feature. We're still shooting wide angle with the 35mm blue ring, which we filtered with a IR filter so that we're not getting interference from any of the ultraviolet or infrared light. We've got some clouds out in the distance. We've got some dappled sunlight on this fallen log, and focus stacking will give us about 12 or 13 frames so that we can stitch it all together in post and have one beautiful, completely in focus image from the beginning of this giant log to the end of that giant log, and hopefully infinity behind it. So let's get to it. So one more shot before we head back to the office. We've gone back to the XT camera system because I couldn't resist shooting a very angsty and moody shot with all of the sun coming through the trees. We're shooting directly into the sun, which is, not advised, but we have a little bit of a lens shade here. So what we've done is we've leveled the tripod, leveled the camera, And then we've centered everything. And what we really want to do is just try and get a lot of these long shadows, but keep the perspective of those trees. So we don't want to tip the camera down because then we'll lose the perspective of the trees. So that's where the movements of the XT come into play. So because we're shooting achromatic, we just have tons of detail. We just have tons of contrast. We're going to have a lot of good play on light. We're going to shoot dual exposure plus, so we can still bring out all the detail of kind of the moss that's on the this side of the side trees. What we're going to do is center the camera system, and then we're going to use our hood to filter out any of that lens flare from the sun. But then we will move the camera system up, moving the lens down essentially so we can get those long shadows and make sure that our composition gives us everything we want. Now we have focus really from the foreground of the image just in front of the camera all the way through to infinity, we hope. I am shooting at f10 at 1/25th of a second, ISO 200, and we will use dual exposure plus once more so that we can get all of that great detail and dynamic range in this shot. And there we have it. The last shot of the day. A few shots. It's definitely not warm enough to be out here all day, but you know, a good morning shooting, having some fun with the achromatic system, and yeah, let's head back to a warm office.
So thank you for joining Raul and I out there in the field. It did get a little chilly, but the days are warming up now, so we're hoping to find more time to get out there, make some sample shots for you guys, take a few of the suggestions that you have and what you want to see, the comparisons you want to see. So Raul and I hope to do much more of that in the future. So what did we capture while we were out there? Well, the image that we captured of this manor house, we were really looking at the dynamic range and of course the low noise that exists in this file. We were shooting at ISO 200, which is the base ISO for the IQ4 150 achromatic. And that base ISO, of course, gives us the lowest possible noise. So it's very fortunate that the base ISO at 200, it gives us the flexibility to shoot a little bit faster. And also, if we're going to be doing frame averaging, we can shoot faster, not have any real different look to the file. So that ability with the base ISO of 200 gives us a bit more flexibility out there in the field. But Raul and I captured this image using dual exposure plus. Now, dual exposure plus gives us as much dynamic range as possible because it's actually combining two shots into one. We expose once for the highlights and once for the shadows. So in a way, that's kind of like zone system mentality for black and white photography, where you're exposing for the highlights but developing for the shadows. Because we're exposing for the highlights so we don't clip, but then that second exposure combined into that raw file in Capture One lets us pull up and develop for those shadows. So we have a beautifully lit and bright side of that building. It's a white gray while we were out there, so it's really, really reflective, but we can zoom in and see every little nook and cranny, every little bit of detail. And then, of course, in the post process, we can pull up all these rich shadows that exist. So we have a final file which doesn't have too much contrast, but just enough, and it really holds on to all of that rich detail. Now, we did use our IR filter in front of the lens for that shot. So we didn't capture any of the infrared that was out there, but a little bit of the UV light is still captured, and then we get a nice rich tonality in our sky. Now, when I talk about the low noise and the depth of detail, this is what we're looking at 100%. And Raul can push a fancy button over there on his console and actually pull up the actual image for you, so you can see it in a bit more refined detail. But that really gives us all of the rich depth of detail and the crunchiness that wouldn't exist in this file if it was a color sensor. We would have to do either a focus stack of the image or really we would just have to get closer in order to get that detail, even with 151 megapixels from the color sensor. And that's really because there isn't any of that interpolation. So the depth of that detail is so rich that you can really reach out and touch it. You can really, feel it. And if this were a print, which we could make, 10 feet, 2 meters, without blinking an eye, it's something that, is really all encompassing. It's something that you're really there in the scene. The next shot that we took, we moved into the shade, which wasn't a good idea. It was a bit cold. But we used the XF, and we used the 35 millimeter blue ring lens, and then we did a focus stack. So all of those focus stack images in the RAW are available to you to download to use. But that focus stack, because we're using an achromatic, comes out to be so much sharper and so much easier with a few fewer captures. In this case, it was 12 captures. But 12 images sewn into one, so we have a fantastic from the very, very foreground to the infinity sharpness. So everything is sharp from the beginning to the end of that frame, through and through. Now, that focus stacking is something that is very easy to do with the XF. It's something that's it's very it's a very simple approach to putting it together thanks to the tool, but it's something that we would all expect to see in a very large black and white image if it were hanging in the gallery, like a very big landscape black and white. We would expect to see that sharpness. That's something that gives those images that we can all conjure to mind while we're watching this webinar, those fantastic large-scale images that we can really step into. If you've been to a museum and you've seen those big black and white prints, you know what I'm talking about. It feels like you could reach out and touch that scene. Well, that exists because primarily those shots are likely with a 4x5 or an 8x10. So it is a very large format camera. They are using probably ShineFlug to really give us that full focus. So our depth of field is the entire image. We really are using the hyperfocal distance with those cameras to their limit, and then we have movements with those cameras so we can get everything in focus. A smaller alternative with the XF is to use focus stacking and then use Helicon focus to stitch everything together. And that's what we've done here. So the final image of all of that data stitched together is incredibly rich. It's incredibly sharp. And that really has that detail that is completely tangible. It has this plasticity to it. We can really feel and touch that detail and the contrast that exists with all of those small little bits and crags in that log. And again, this is a file that you're welcome to download, you're welcome to use, and you can actually put that together yourself and see all of that detail. So an alternative tool that we used with the IQ4 150 achromatic to give us that stunning result. And again, this is something that if we wanted to print 10 meters, 2 meter print, it's something that you could really reach out and touch. You could step into. And that's all down to both the detail that exists in 151 megapixels of resolution, but also the depth of detail that exists with an achromatic, a dedicated black and white sensor. Now, Raul and I were not fortunate enough to have enough time to shoot any infrared. It would have been a great day for it. I mean, the green grass wasn't very green. It's still early days here of spring. But maybe that'll be on the next one, where we can go out and shoot a little bit of infrared photography. Now, we have a sample here from Niels Knudsen, the imaging professor at Capture One, who did a test with the IQ3 100 achromatic, a fantastic test that illustrates what's available to us when we shoot with a dedicated achromatic sensor, and we filter for the infrared. So this is the light sensitivity of the IQ3 100 achromatic, very similar to the IQ4 150 achromatic. From wavelengths of 390 to 700, this is the visible spectrum. This is what we see all day, every day. And then from 700 on to 1,000, that is the sensitivity that exists in the achromatic sensor. So that's typically something that's lost when you have a CFA, a color filter array, in the Bayer pattern on a color sensor. But with an achromatic, you're able to actually see that. You can filter out the visible spectrum and only capture the infrared. It's not as sensitive, so you have to do some longer exposures, but depending on how bright the sun is, you can get some very stunning results that don't look as though they're long exposures, which is exactly what Niels has captured long ago with the IQ3 100. So this is a very typical agricultural landscape of Denmark. Rolling fields. This would likely be green or yellow rapeseed fields. And just, as far as the eye can see, lush green fields, because we get plenty of rain here in Scandinavia. So this shot with a typical IR cut filter, one of these filters, looks as though we would expect it to look when it's a black and white image. We have a lot of rich contrast in the dark green fields, and then we have some nice dark rich contrast between the white clouds and the blue sky. Lots of material to work with in terms of making a nice contrasty, beautiful image. But if we filter out the visible spectrum and we only capture the infrared, what we end up with is something where we retain that nice, brilliant, bright sky, but our field goes completely white. And that's because we're only capturing that infrared light that exists on that vegetation. So again, just to toggle back and forth, that incredible dynamic light that exists that we can't see, that's hidden just behind a few filters, is something that you can capture with an achromatic sensor. So putting the correct filtering on your camera in front of your lens allows you to capture the infrared just like this without much more effort, and you can see the results instantly, which is a bit different than the approach of shooting infrared film, which I've tried once or twice. Do not recommend. This is a much more elegant approach. So maybe that'll be on the next one where Raul and I can get out and do a little bit of infrared photography. So when we talk about a dedicated black and white camera system, we are talking about Phase 1's achromatic systems. So we have an IQ3-100 achromatic that's available as a certified pre-owned, and then we have the IQ4 flagship IQ4-150 achromatic. So this platform is the current platform, which we are constantly evolving, constantly changing, constantly updating. Works on the XT, on the XF, and that gives you 151 megapixels of pure black and white achromatic data. So that does give you that rich detail, that incredible depth of detail, because we don't have that color filter array. It is dedicated just to black and white photography. We then have that sharpness that you can really reach out and touch. It's a sharpness that doesn't exist on the equivalent resolution color sensor, because we don't have any of that interpolation on the achromatic. So we can really see that depth of detail, which if you zoom in 100% on the image, you can see. If you zoom in 400%, you can really see. You can see just how the pixels separate from one another, because every single pixel is being accurately recorded, and it's not being massaged, interpreted to give you that fantastic end result file. And then, of course, we have the flexibility when it comes to the infrared or the ultraviolet, with a little bit of sensitivity to that exists with an achromatic sensor. So you have even more tools in your toolkit. You have even more options available to you when it comes to shooting black and white, infrared, UV. All of it exists with an achromatic. So at Phase 1, we believe in photography. We love photography, and thank goodness that Raul and I were able to get out with appropriate distances and do a little bit of photography, do a little bit of camera work in Raul's case. But we were out there shooting, having a blast, doing what we love. We're glad to see that the weather's back, and we are really looking forward to having much more FaceTime with you so that we can do a bit more photography. You can tell that I'm not used to talking this much, so apologize for losing my voice every now and then, but we're really excited to be out there doing more photography, having more webinars, and having much more time to just talk with you and answer your questions. If you have any other questions that I can't answer, by all means, please reach out to your Phase 1 partner. The IQ3-100 achromatic is available as a certified pre-owned digital back. And then, of course, the IQ4-150 achromatic, 151 megapixels, is the new platform for the Phase 1 IQ4. So thank you for joining us today. It's been great. All the files that we've shared here today, plus a few others, are available for you to download and use at your discretion. We hope to do this one or two more times, in the next, while the sun's up. So thank you for joining us. It's been great, and we'll see you again next time.